Took a suspect into custody within 5 minutes of the original 911 call.
McCabe says the suspect is a 15-year-old sophomore at the school in Oxford Township, some 30 miles north of Detroit. Deputies have a semi-automatic handgun and several ammunition clips thought to have been used in the shooting. Conditions of the wounded are not yet known. Federal Appeals Court finds that the California state law restricting the size of gun magazines does not violate the rights of gun owners. AP Shelley Adler has more.
A panel of the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has upheld California's ban on high-capacity magazines in a split decision that may be headed for the U.S. Supreme Court. The San Francisco-based panel acted after 2 appellate judges last year ruled the state's ban on magazines holding more than 10 bullets violates the U.S. Constitution's protection of the right to bear firearms. But in the 7-4 decision, the 9th Circuit reasoned that the law does not outlaw any weapon and interferes only minimally with the right of self-defense. I'm Shelley Adler.
In an internal memo obtained by the Associated Press, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin writes, vaccination is essential to the readiness of the force. In his note, Austin outlines his decision that National Guard members who refuse COVID-19 vaccinations will be barred from federally funded drills and training required to maintain their Guard status. Austin has told the various services to publish guidance by next week on dealing with Guard members who refuse a coronavirus vaccination. This is AP News. The Biden administration's pandemic team talks about the Omicron variant of the coronavirus. Dr. Anthony Fauci says one thing that jumps out is the multiple mutations.
This mutational profile is very different from other variants of interest and concern. And although some mutations are also found in Delta, this is not Delta. It's something different. And these mutations have been associated with increased transmissibility.
Fauci says no cases of the variant have yet to emerge in the U.S. It's been found in more than 20 other countries since first being spotted in southern Africa under 3 weeks ago. Heading into the close on Wall Street, the Dow is off 554 points, a 1.5% drop. S&P down 75, off more than 1.5%. The Nasdaq has declined less than 1.5% in value, down 237 points. I'm Tim McGuire, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
Metra's UP North Line train scheduled to depart Winnetka at 3:09 is not operating due to an earlier medical emergency. The next 2 trains will be accommodating all passengers. In Naperville, northbound Route 59 closed between North Aurora Road and Brookdale Road with an injury accident. In Barrington, crews are doing railroad crossing repairs. Now Route 59 closed both ways between Lake Cook Road and Franklin Street. Eden's either way, good to go. Kennedy outbound, 16 to the Split 8 and the Express 33 to O'Hare. Inbound from the airport a half hour, 19 minutes in from the junction. Ike outbound a 40-minute ride from the Circle to 390. Inbound at 46. Now the Stevenson outbound heavy to Central. From DeSaba Lakeshore Drive to 355 and 48. That's traffic. I'm Mary DeBadges.
Remember when you get to work to hop over to WCPT820.com or the TuneIn Radio app and stream The Stephanie Miller Show. Weekdays 8 to 11 a.m. on Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
I got a message from some folks that they were wondering about the live stream. We're back up. I probably pushed the wrong button or something, and I think I just pushed a button too early. This is what happens when you do 4 hours in a row. Joan is out today. She'll be back on Thursday, and sending her all the love right now. And I know that we've got a lot to talk about. I was just listening to, I love that Dr. Fauci he's just very direct, and it's like, look, this is more transmissible, and that's what we're seeing right now. And I wonder what your thoughts are as we discuss more on Omicron and the idea that a lot of Trumpers are floating that this is all being created by Dr. Fauci and liberals, and somehow we have control over this, and not that we're worried about our families, our neighbors, our communities, and of course our economy, everything there. But I think I was also supposed to press. Did I forget to press this button, Zach? I think I did. Let me see. What's this one?
The Hal Sparks radio program.
Commercial for Hal.
There are millions of people.
Oh, see, I'm pushing all the wrong buttons. We'll have to reload that. Anyway, I want to look at some of the texts that were coming in earlier, too, during our conversation with Tim Hogan. I apologize that I didn't have this open. One listener from Wheeling. Hey, Larry, please continue the discussion on right-wing radio in Chicago. Sorry, I'll have Tim back in and talk about that, because Larry's very concerned about the 50,000-watt clear channel radio stations in Chicago. Two are very clearly right wing and have screamers on their air most of the day, unless they are talking sports or weather. Now, WGN is run by Nexstar, another right wing organization. Thank you, WCPT and Heartland Signal. Also wants to know how the name Heartland Signal came about. That's from Larry. That is, it was interesting when I used to work at a different radio station, one that you maybe mentioned in that question. There was a lot of I came into my show overnights with the idea of talking about politics, and I did it in a way that I tried to make sure that the audience felt like they could call regardless of their political background. It was clear that I was a Democrat and that I was a liberal, but I tried to not say, I tried not to be as vindictive, but I'm sure that, in the sense that, the sort of divisive language. I stayed away from that. And I think that no matter what I say, I think that conservatives will still hear it as being divisive or being taking it as a personal attack. And that's one of the things that I struggle with is I'm very passionate about the truth, about fighting for people, about freedoms, and that always seems to land on the ears of the other side as being a personal attack. And that's one of the things I think we do is we internalize, personalize politics, and it's impossible to separate the two. And one of the reasons I've gotten involved in politics was because of my awareness and how social services and schools and how government can directly affect us every single day. And that's what drove me to advocate for families in Springfield. But on my overnight shows, I try to make it a place where everybody could have a conversation. I used to go door knocking for campaigns in the area. And I remember the last one I did was for Robert Martwick. And I remember someone recognized my voice and they were like, "Are you on the radio?" And I thought, well, this is inappropriate. I should not be going door to door, making it very clear of which candidate I was endorsing and working for. Obviously I had a lot of legislators on my show. When I started to run for office, I remember Lindsay LaPointe asking me, she's like, well, you haven't knocked on any doors. How are you going to answer to that? And I was like, I'm knocking on about 110,000 doors a night, carrying the story and the values of Democrats across the state of Illinois. So I'm very proud of the work that I did. But I have heard, I do not listen to overnights on other stations. I have heard that the hosts that they have now tend to be very right wing, and I know it's concerning for a lot of listeners. I see some of the conversations on social media. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind, my friend from Chicago?
Hi, Jay. I'm just wondering, when are we going to use our imaginations in a political arena? I'm so tired of being called Groucho Marx or a capitalist or a socialist. These are terms that are 200-300 years old. When are we going to come into the sunlight and imagine our political future in different terms than we are now? This is insane. I think about the Milwaukee senator who screamed communism for 15 years, and how Nixon came to power because of that. And now it's socialism. or of course, don't forget Marx. I mean, the only closest name to Marx is Groucho Marx. You know what I mean? That's about it for me. But I mean, when are we going to get out of this nightmare of where we're bludgeoning each over the head with terms that are hundreds and hundreds of years old? I mean, it's insane. You know, the point is, we want to. I go along to Thomas Paine. You've got to make the population happy. I mean, if you're a politician, you've got to at least apply to the happiness of the person you're voting for.
Well, I
not
think
some kind of a. I'm sorry, Dirk,
No, go ahead. But to that, like, I mean, Obama obviously and Clinton, I think Bill Clinton ran on this energy of, you know, being for the people and being unifying. I mean, like that speech that Obama gave at the convention in, what was it, 2004, 2005? We are not the red states of America. We are not the blue states of America. We are the United States of America. There's something to that, but it doesn't seem to be doesn't have the longevity of someone's trying to take your home, someone's trying to take your job, someone's trying to kill you. I mean, we're just not that good at that. We don't want to do that. That's not what we want. You know, we try to do the other, but how do we sustain that as a driving force is the question.
Well, I might even vote Republican if a Republican came out with a fresh idea that made sense, rather than, you know, you're a socialist, you're a communist, you're, if you vote Democratic, you're all these terrible things. And if you vote Republican, you're a fascist. I mean, this is just, we're stuck in the mud with this nonsense. That's all I have to say. And
100%.
Anyway, Patty, have a great show. Great to hear you. Thank you, dear.
Thank you so much. Before we go to the break, we're going to take some more calls when we come back. I just want to make sure I get to one of the questions that Larry had about where does the name Heartland Signal come from. I texted Tim, and he said that it comes from the area that we cover. Obviously, we cover this region. We are the Heartland, and also it harkens back to that idea of core values of family, of America. And that is who we are. And also, Tim says a nod to his brain. We would like to. That's his brain. It's a nod to radio, and we thank him for that name. I think it works out well. And Dan C. says, I heard you talk about the idea of a WCPT road trip to Springfield. I'm a tour guide with extensive practice working all along the I-55 corridor in Illinois history, including many tours of the capital city with school groups. I do Chicago, Route 66, Abe Lincoln history, and general Illinois history. I would be happy to talk to you about being a hop-on guide for a trip to Springfield, either on Amtrak or if you arrange a motor coach for the ride. That's with WindyCityRoadWarrior.com. Again, that's WindyCityRoadWarrior.com if folks want to know more about him, and we'll reach out and see what we can do. When we come back, we'll take your calls, 773-763-9278, and coming up after 3:30, we'll talk to Representative Stephanie Kifowit. We'll check out, see what she's up to. And we are live, local, and progressive on Joan Esposito's show. This is Patti Vasquez filling in. Joan will be back on Thursday.
The Hal Sparks radio program.
Governors of pro-Trump states, they must show their fealty towards Trump by mitigating any support for the health and safety of their own citizens against COVID so that they don't upset him or the minority of his supporters amongst the Republicans in their state, which are often the majority of the voters in their state.
Hal Sparks, Saturdays from 11 to 1 on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Tried Eucrisa for mild to moderate eczema? It works at and below the skin surface and can be used on almost everybody, like on the dimples of a diva.
Yeah, roll your boat. Yeah, roll your boat.
Or the shoulders of a chef.
Look, Mom, I made jelly beans on toast.
Steroid-free Eucrisa works at and below the skin surface. It blocks PDE4 enzymes, which is believed to reduce inflammation, even on the wrist of a rebel.
What did you do to your hair?
What?
The specific way Eucrisa works is not well defined. Prescription Eucrisa for mild to moderate eczema is for topical use only in ages 3 months and up. Do not use if you are allergic to Eucrisa, crisaborole ointment 2%, or its ingredients. Allergic reactions including hives, itching, swelling, and redness may occur at or near the application site. The most common side effect is application site pain, such as burning or stinging.
Come on, moms and dads. Check out eucrisa.com and ask your doctor about Eucrisa.
Can I sing one more song?
Doesn't your family deserve the best? Eggland's Best Eggs. Classic, cage-free, and organic. Give you and your family more. More delicious, farm-fresh taste. Plus, superior nutrition. Compared to ordinary eggs, Eggland's Best provides 6 times more vitamin D, 10 times more vitamin E, and 25% less saturated fat. These are no ordinary times, so why choose an ordinary egg? Only Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
Do you suffer from bleeding fissures, hemorrhoids, IBS, Crohn's disease, or colitis? Have you tried all the usual products but you're not getting the relief that you need? Stop living with pain and discomfort. You need a solution that is safe, fast, and effective. You need Healing Bottoms. For more than a decade, Healing Bottoms Holistic Pharmacy has been committed to making holistic solutions to relieve inflammatory bowel disease-related ailments through medical research and clinical trials. They offer a wide variety of products, from turmeric suppositories to supplements. But don't take our word for it. Head over to healingbottoms.com and use promo code RADIO to receive 10% off your first order. Healing Bottoms is locally owned and a certified woman-owned small business and is dedicated to delivering 100% all-natural products since 2009. All of their products are made right here in the United States. So head over to healingbottoms.com and take your life back again.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
This is Patti Vasquez, and I will be here until 6. We'll have Joan's entire show. We've got Dr. Lawrence Robbins coming up at 4:30. We're going to talk about a lot of things, including the Omicron variant and Dr. Fauci and the hate that's being piled upon him by wingnuts. And we'll also talk about a little bit of back pain, because I don't know about you, but I really do go to sleep like in the permanent flinch position, having just so many things happening, whether it's personal, professional, or everything going on in the world. Steve from the Gold Coast wanted to join our conversation. Hi, Steve. What's on your mind?
Yes, I wanted to say something with regard to the conversation you were having earlier. In terms of how the Democratic Party and liberals and progressives in general find the American voters with a message that resonates. And I do think that there is this conundrum that he alluded to, in that, yes, we want to meet people where they are, but I contend that we're living in a society where it's increasingly the case that, you know, if you don't have an answer that could fit on a cookie, on a fortune cookie, or in a Twitter post, people's eyes just roll back into their head and aren't really interested in listening to, you know, nuance and complexity. Forget that. It doesn't belong in the American political landscape any longer. So that's the conundrum we face. The Republicans have mastered this. So, you know, I mean, if you're looking for something that's easily sold to people, higher taxes bad, more regulation bad, lower taxes good, less regulation good. Okay, great. Except that's overly simplistic and nonsensical. Now, what we as progressives, liberals, Democrats would like to do is actually talk about policy. Hillary Clinton was great about talking about policy. She could really get into the meat of it. But what she refused to do was to say to a coal miner in Pennsylvania, yeah, I'm going to get you your job back, that job that your grandfather had, because she wasn't going to be able to give him back that job. But Donald Trump actually went out there and lied to people and said, yeah, I'm going to get you back that job, and you'll be making the equivalent of 6 figures, you know, like your grandfather did in 1960. In equivalent dollars today, you know, just basically lied to people, and people ate it up. And I do think that, you know, that in 2016 you had, maybe 16 people running on the Republican side, all looking to occupy the same piece of political real estate, because how much different was Ted Cruz from Marco Rubio from Jeb Bush versus Donald Trump, who was most certainly different than everybody else running. And he catered to those people. He basically said, you know what, the things that you couldn't say openly and in public. You know, the kind of dog whistle stuff that, you know, the Republicans were good at doing. But, you know, again, it was dog whistle. It wasn't direct. Donald Trump just came out and said it. He said, you know what, it's fine to hate people who don't look like us. And it's perfectly fine to say we want to exclude them and let's build a wall and keep them out because, you know, they're drug dealers and they're rapists and this sort of thing. And it resonated with a lot of people in this country. And I think that we sort of missed the boat. Every time there's a new technology and a new way of communicating with Americans, we're always late to the game because talk radio, you know, that's what beat us in 1994, ushered in the Gingrich Congress. And then cable television, again, you know, Fox and so forth, which played a huge role, still continues to be a big role in terms of defining where we are in our political landscape. And then in 2016, we all thought people like Alex Jones and his ilk, they're just a bunch of crazy fringe nuts. Well, it turns out those crazy fringe nuts bought millions of voters to Donald Trump's campaign. So I really don't know what the answer is, but we have to find a way to meet people, you know, in a way that resonates. The Republicans mastered this in a lot of ways. I don't know how we do it without sinking to that level because, I don't know how to tell somebody what the American economic landscape looks like in a Twitter post. I just can't do it. So how do we communicate that with them without being stupid? Quite frankly.
Well, and that's the thing. I was talking to Tim, I think yesterday, Tim Hogan, who we had in just a little while ago, talking about Heartland Signal, is that, you know, Democrats want to give you the recipe for brownies and Republicans just give you brownies. And so we keep getting into the weeds of things rather than this is what we accomplished, this is what we can accomplish, this is what we, you know, the promises, like you said, but we're also not as willing to, I don't know, and I could be wrong. I mean, I know plenty of Democrats that lie, but we're not as willing to get, you know, to get on the same page with things that don't coalesce or don't jive with what our values are. I think that we have a bigger problem with, or it's that Republicans believe that their values, whether it's Christianity or whatever it is that they held up at wrapping themselves in the flag, everything else is secondary. The truth is secondary to embracing those things and pushing that out as the message. And we don't have...
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, somehow Republicans became the party of God and religion in America. How that happened, don't ask me, but that's the perception that people have. That Democrats and Republicans, when you look at national defense, that the Democrats became the people who were willing to give away America to the Chinese and the Soviet Union when it existed. I mean, how that happened is ridiculous, you know, because it doesn't make any sense historically. But that's the way that people perceive, you know, the Republicans versus Democrats. And, you know, the Democrats are the party of big taxes and spending. Rather than saying, you know what, Democrats are the people who advocated for the bills that built the interstate highway system, that funded huge investments in post-secondary educational institutions. And that's why so many people in America have a college degree and contribute so much, because we made it possible for those people to have access to a university degree. But, you know, no one discusses those things. You know, it's just, no, Democrats want to take your money and just waste it somehow. You know, just give it away to people, rather than talking about everything good that comes out of taxing and investing in the future of this country.
It's absolutely. That's we're always going to get hammered with the framing that you just mentioned. You know, we'll provide tax cuts, but it even goes much more. I would say with a scalpel sometimes. Remember that whole death panel thing? You couldn't get people to stop saying death panel. I'm saying it now, but that was there even before Sarah Palin brought it up and made that something for everyone to be afraid of. And again, it goes to that fear. I've got to run to the break. Steve, always great to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take care. We'll take a break here. This is Patti Vasquez sitting in for Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, coming up after this break. We'll continue to take your calls, and we're also going to check in with Representative Stephanie Kifowit. She's the first person in the state of Illinois to take on what was his name? Michael Madigan. I should probably remember these things. Speaker Madigan. See, that's what I tripped over. She challenged him and ran against him as speaker, and I want to talk a little bit about that and, of course, what's going on in Springfield, and we'll talk a little bit about Giving Tuesday. Hey, if you have an organization you would like us to mention for Giving Tuesday, give us a call or text 773-763-9278. More after this.
Howdy, folks. Scott Silberman here. It's been a bigly first year for Joe Biden. First, the American Rescue Plan, then the bipartisan infrastructure plan, and shortly, the Build Back Better plan as well. All told, over $5 trillion on things we really need. We have a great president, and it's time for us to step up and fight all the lies about him. Now, let's talk about your next refi or mortgage. Rates are still ridiculously low, so call me at 847-423-0301. Let's see if I can save you money. If you have an adjustable rate, now's the time to move to the safety of a fixed rate. If you're looking to buy, please call me for a solid pre-approval before you even talk to your realtor. It'll save you both time and hassle. So call me at 847-423-0301 or start online, scott.silberman@goapmc.com.
American Portfolio Mortgage is an equal housing opportunity lender, NMLS 175656, Scott's NMLS 681059.
Tried Eucrisa for mild to moderate eczema? It works at and below the skin surface and can be used on almost everybody, like on the dimples of a diva.
Yeah, roll your boat. Yeah, roll your boat.
Or the shoulders of a chef.
Look, Mom, I made jelly beans on toast.
Steroid-free Eucrisa works at and below the skin surface. It blocks PDE4 enzymes, which is believed to reduce inflammation, even on the wrist of a rebel.
What did you do to your hair?
What?
The specific way Eucrisa works is not well defined. Prescription Eucrisa for mild to moderate eczema is for topical use only in ages 3 months and up. Do not use if you are allergic to Eucrisa, crisaborole ointment 2%, or its ingredients. Allergic reactions including hives, itching, swelling, and redness may occur at or near the application site. The most common side effect is application site pain, such as burning or stinging.
Come on, moms and dads. Check out eucrisa.com and ask your doctor about Eucrisa.
Can I sing one more song?
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago traffic update.
Metra's UP North Line train scheduled to depart Winnacunnet 309 is not operating due to an earlier medical emergency. Now, the next 2 trains will be accommodating all passengers downtown. In Naperville, northbound Route 59 closed off between North Aurora Road and Brookdale Road with an injury accident. Southbound side of the tri-state, solid from the 290 to Plainfield Road, where crews just cleared a crash. Kennedy out to the split 1713 in the express, 35 to O'Hare. Inbound from O'Hare at 38, 19 minutes in from the junction. Ike outbound stop and go western to First, circle to 390 and 43. Stevenson outbound heavy out to Cass, in pockets from DeSable Lakeshore Drive to 355-58. Inbound, bumper to bumper, 355 to Roddy 3 with a crash in the left lane. That's traffic. I'm Mary DeBadges.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT Willow Springs is powered by ComEd. Lower your energy bills and reduce your carbon footprint with the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program.
Live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist Patti Vasquez.
You are listening to the Joan Esposito Show, live, local, and progressive. I'm Patti Vasquez, and I know we've got some calls. I want to check. We've got Representative Stephanie Kifowit on the line with us right now. Hi, Representative. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Oh, very good. Thanks for having me, Patty. I always enjoy being on the show.
Thank you so much. I love having you on. You do a great job of breaking down a lot of things, and I've got some calls on hold, so I don't know if you want to join the conversation we've been having about Democrats reaching more voters, but that's something we can talk about in a moment, because first I want to ask, how was your Thanksgiving?
Well, it depends on if you're gauging by how much the scale went up, how good the food was.
Right?
And how well my family was. And my family was great. It was nice to fellowship with them. We had some deaths in the family this year. We've lost 4 members of our family, 2 to COVID, 2 to other causes. So it was melancholy, but very, very nice to be around family. Watching the scale was not nice. But the food tasted great, so it's like this trade-off I'm still working on.
I was thinking about this yesterday because I feel as though the gravity's having a bigger pull on me, and that's because of how much I've been eating. It did feel like there was more urgency to eat all the comfort food on Thanksgiving, and I don't know what that was, but it was delicious.
Well, I like to say I'm the designated eater. So somebody has to be the designated eater, and I'm very happy to take that role in our family. So
it's an important role. I wanted to ask you.
It is.
I know that
it is, but I have a milestone birthday, so now I have to work 3 times as hard because I just turned 50 a couple weeks ago, so I'm half a century old.
I know. Hey, you welcome to the club, my friend. I turned 50 right before you did in August. I know that you had a celebration. I'm sorry that I missed it, but I look forward to seeing you soon, I hope. Do you have any, are there any, I know it's Giving Tuesday and a lot of folks are trying to amplify, and I think that there's a lot of clutter on our social media feeds, in our email boxes. I got a lot of alerts. Yesterday we talked to Senator Dan Katowski about Kids Above All. I know that you work with a lot of veterans groups and a lot of great not-for-profits in your community. Are there any you would like us to know about today on this Giving Tuesday?
Well, I am appointed to the board of Illinois Joining Forces, and they work to provide veterans and connect them with resources. I also would state that a lot of organizations are bigger than your local American Legion or VFW Hall, and so that's why their emails are getting in your inbox. But remember our veterans this time of year, and reach out to your local American Legion and VFW, and also my office and many other offices are engaging in Toys for Tots.
Oh, yes.
So bring in an unwrapped toy so a child can experience Christmas.
Yes.
So look for your local Toys for Tots drop-off box.
That's a wonderful reminder. Thank you for that. And I know that a lot of organizations in my community, and of course across the Chicagoland area and in Illinois, are doing coat drives. And we've been working with some of the groups in the neighborhood when it comes to our homeless and our shelter vulnerable neighbors, making sure that we have blankets on hand and coats. So check in and see what folks in your community need. And Representative, I mentioned Representative Tiffany Kifowit was the first and only person to directly take Speaker Madigan on head to head, and I hope that someone, and maybe I have to sit down and figure out how to write something, but it is a monumental moment in Illinois history. Do you sometimes just wake up and go, "Oh my God, I took on the speaker," because it's enormous and it changed the trajectory of our politics in the state of Illinois. I know I've put a lot out there on that, but what a year out, what are your reflections on this path that you started and the energy that you put into it?
Well, I'm just really excited. Number one, that a lot of people told me when I was talking about challenging Speaker Madigan at the time that there's no way it's going to be successful, that he's going to win without you, that you're pretty much dooming your whole political career. And but to me, I've always been mission-oriented, maybe because I was in the military, I was in the Marines, but to me, all that was irrelevant because somebody had to stand up and do something. And I'm just, first and foremost, I'm kind of still amazed on the way it all worked out. I'm very excited to be working with our new speaker, Chris Welch, as he finishes up just a stellar first year in the office of Speaker, and I look forward to the good things that's going to come in Illinois with fresh eyes and fresh ideas and just the wealth of motivation and individuals that we have at the House that are now empowered to do the work of the people the way that they feel fit to do the work of the people, if that makes sense.
It does, because there was a lot of energy in the spring session, a lot of huge changes that went into legislation, whether it was where we put our, because we often talk about how our budget is a reflection of our values, and that was there was a lot, of course, really long sessions. Had you been in Springfield where you had sessions going that many days in a row till 3 or 4 in the morning, 6 in the morning? Because you guys were there all night on some of these.
We were at the tail end of the last session, the last General Assembly. We were there an awful long time to get not only bills passed, but we also caucused a lot with regards to the upcoming election of Speaker. And so that was, by account, the most incredibly virtually 24 hours without sleep sessions that we've had. So I've never gone through that when we've adjourned at like 4 in the morning and have to be back at 7 in the morning, and some people just didn't bother sleeping. One rep obviously didn't properly pack an overnight bag and had to wear the same clothes twice for inauguration. So that was certainly one for the books that I don't ever hope gets repeated.
By the way, I see that you got your booster shot last week. I'm going through your Twitter, your Facebook feed right now. I'm like, oh, look at you.
I got to upload. Oh man, what else do I need to upload really quick?
Congratulations on that. I'm looking forward to getting my booster shot too, and I know that you're doing events throughout the season to let people know that they have access to booster shots. And there was one recently at the Baptist Church in your community, and I know that a lot of legislators are having events, or local electeds and organizations. How is the turnout for some of the flu shots and the booster shots? What are you hearing from people when they come in?
Well, it was very exciting and kind of non-traditional. I partnered with the alderman of the area, Alderman Shakita Hart-Burns, and we were at two predominantly African-American churches on Black Friday. And when we talked about it, we were a little bit concerned about turnout on Black Friday. But to be quite honest, we had a packed house pretty much the whole time because, people were off of work and they had time and they were out and about. And so they stopped in and got their flu shot. So it was really successful in reaching individuals. And, the bottom line is, I've said this before, I lost two family members to COVID, my mother-in-law and my uncle-in-law. They both were fairly healthy by all measures and got COVID. And, I think a booster shot is really important because that's something I don't ever want. I've known friends that have it. I just, if you're looking at my Facebook page, I just posted that, or didn't post, but there's a clinic now for COVID long haulers that was just established. Oh. And, it's a serious issue.
It really is. Our friend Scott Stantis, I think you'd hung out with Scott, who's the cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune. He has long haulers, and he talks about fatigue, memory loss. He still has not regained his sense of taste and smell, and that was last summer that he contracted COVID.
Mm-hmm. So Mayo Clinic has created a long hauler COVID department, and there's a wait list to get an appointment, and there's more than 200 symptoms associated with long haulers and COVID, including deep fatigue, is one of the most frequently reported long-term effects. So it's real, and people do survive COVID, but long hauling symptoms is a real thing. And so I would just encourage people to get their boosters. I was in the military. I don't even know what they shot me up with in boot camp. I got probably 18 different vaccines and stuff. I'm still standing, so I encourage people to talk to their doctor and get their booster shots or get vaccinated.
I want to, there's so much talk out there about basically vilifying Dr. Fauci and Democrats for spreading lies about COVID. And so we've been having in the last hour or so a conversation about Democrats needing to reach more voters and what we're willing to, not willing, I don't know how to put it, because there's this whole idea of Democrats, because there's such a range, and it seems as though Republicans can latch on to one, set of memo items and just go after that point by point, whereas we're like, well, here's, like we were just talking about long haulers, right? You might survive COVID, but then you have this, lifelong side effects that can impact your ability to enjoy life in so many ways. But saying all that isn't as catchy as like, they just want to control your lives. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we don't. It's hard.
Well, I mean, there is some validity to keeping things simple. And I tell people I don't know if you watch Brian Gumbel, Real Sports, but Brian Gumbel had an amazing segment about long haulers and COVID in the professional sports arena. Like, these were people, top of their game, marathon runners, pro basketball players that got COVID and they can't even walk around the block.
Right.
Now. So I just tell them to watch that segment and to talk to their doctor. I encourage people to talk to their doctor. So they don't have to listen to me. Please talk to a doctor, a real person, not somebody on the internet, not a talking head on YouTube. Talk to a real person. Talk to multiple real people in the community, real people at hospitals and degrees, medical degrees, to talk about the situation.
See, but you're asking people to use reason when it's much easier to say, if you get the vaccine, you'll be magnetized. See, that's just catchier. Hold on, Roosevelt's been on hold. We've been talking about how to have conversations.
Oh, yeah. Bring him on. Yeah. Bring him on.
Hey, Roosevelt, what's on your mind?
Hey, ladies, how you doing today? Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely.
I think that when it comes down to the other side, they got their plan down pat, and that is they divide and conquer. It's the old same thing. It trickled down Reaganomics and all that. And just look, I wonder, and I think, how do people like Ocasio-Cortez or Omar, how can they do their job when they're being physically threatened, when fellow co-worker, let's so to speak, fellow congresswoman like Overdose or Taylor Greene threatens them? Can you as women, can you put yourself in her shoes, in Ocasio-Cortez or Omar's shoes, knowing that you have to work with these people? How can Congress come together and work together? And to me, it seems lopsided because they blame the Democrats for not working together, for not being bipartisan. And then you hammer day in, day out people like, do you ladies ever listen to Michael Savage? From time to time I listen to that guy. And it's day in, day out, insults, personal attacks to Democrats, to liberals, and the word liberal just flies around on his show. So that's my rhetorical to you. How can you, we're beyond the point of no return when it comes down to this country. There's no way of reaching the other side vote. That's just me. I don't see it.
Well, Roosevelt, go
ahead,
Rep.
I understand. Yeah, I know. I understand where you're coming from. Keep in mind that we did have a bipartisan infrastructure bill passed on the national level. So there is some bipartisan individuals. There's Republicans on the state level that we work together with, and they're moderates. But keep in mind that elections have consequences, and that the moderate Republicans that we work with, that I work with, I'm not afraid to say that I do work with Republicans that are moderate, that are common sense individuals that we can agree on. But in the Republican primaries, the voters are pushing out the moderate individuals that want to do good things. On the national level, we had common sense Republicans and Democrats come together for infrastructure because people don't want to ride on roads that are full of potholes or bridges that are going to fall into the water. We need to invest in these things, and Republicans and Democrats understand that, and then you have fringe Republicans that are attacking these common sense Republicans. And so what the voters have to do is, stand up and say, we're not gonna vote for these people anymore. These people should not represent our party, which I'm talking about the Republican Party. These fringe individuals should not be representing. They need to get in common sense individuals. And unfortunately, it's up to the electorate because we're in a democracy and elections have consequences and elections matter. And when common sense Republicans stay home and don't vote, in common sense Republicans, like the bipartisan infrastructure bill, like the bipartisan bills we've passed in the Illinois State House, which include infrastructure, that's what happens.
Yeah.
That's the people they get.
Right, but also, what did those 13 Republicans that worked with the president and the Democrats, bipartisan, like you said, what did they get in return? They got their lives threatened by the same people I just spoke about. So we're at a point, and those people that are the friends, like you said, they're picking up a lot of money, a lot of donations. And they don't work with the truth. They don't work with reality. They work with fantasy, and we work with facts on our side. So whenever they talk about Democrats, it's always, So we're at a point that if you're not a Trumpian, you're not a Republican. And it gets lost in the weeds, the fact that you call them Republicans. Yes, I agree with you. They're middle-of-the-road Republicans. But notice, a lot of those same Republicans are dropping off and they're not running in primaries.
Right.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point. And the individuals should not vote for those fringe candidates. And if they do, that's up to the voter to be electric. And that's why I think the Democratic Party is strong, even though I have gotten into some discussions with some Democrats, is the Democratic Party is strong. And they'll take in moderate Democrats and not vilify them. And they'll also take in progressive Democrats and not vilify them. That's the essence of the Democratic Party that I embrace and that I appreciate. Now, I understand there are some people in the Democratic Party that want a little bit more purity, but in my opinion, we have a big tent, and it's very wide, and we should respect everybody. And so where those moderate Republicans are being pushed out of the Republican Party, I think that there's room in the Democratic Party for them, and that we just need to, start looking at the greater good for the public and representing them instead of the fringe candidates. And you're right. People are giving these fringe candidates money. They get clickbaits. They get emotional. They're giving them money. And that's a force that our supporters need to step up and realize this and start supporting equally. Or we're just going to get a whole lot more fringe on the right get elected.
I agree. Roosevelt, I've got to run to a break. Thank you so much for joining our conversation. Take care. Thank you so much. And to that, by the way, to Roosevelt's point, the Dems must show up. This is one of our texters from the 630. Dems must show up to vote and overwhelm the system. Remember, Trump didn't win in 2016. He was elected. Clinton was democratically selected, but Trump was systematically elected, which I think is also a good point. We're on the line with Representative Stephanie Kifowit. I'm Patti Vasquez, filling in today for Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. And Joan will be back on Thursday. Let's take a break here. Continue our conversation. I didn't even ask, Rep. Are you good for hanging out a little bit longer? I should get your permission before I'm like, hang on. Are you good? Oh, hold on a second. Are you good for hanging out for a minute?
I'm good.
Okay, excellent. So we'll be right back with the representative. 773-763-9278.
It's official. The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath is on WCPT 820.
The reality is right in our face, and we have work to do, and people know it.
The former Lincoln Park alderman and former CEO of the Sun-Times, Edwin Eisendrath,
it's familiar to many of you,
will give his unique spin on the political climate every Saturday afternoon from 1 to 4 p.m.
You won't want to miss that, and I'm going to want to hear from you.
The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath.
Look, this country has Democrats, and it has Republicans, and it has mayors.
Only on WCPT 820.
In times of fear, World Vision is there for the most vulnerable. For the last 70 years, we've been standing with kids and families through natural disasters, war, and disease, delivering life-saving aid and helping rebuild lives. And with every act of courage, faith, and love, we do more than just stop the spread of fear. We replace it with hope. Learn more at worldvision.org.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
This is the Joan Esposito Show, live, local, and progressive. Joan is off until Thursday, and I love listening to her conversations, so it's weird to be sitting in this seat. And by weird, I mean it's a tremendous honor. I so respect the work that Joan has done throughout her career and absolutely adore the in-depth conversations that she has here at WCPT. And I, over the years, have developed a relationship, a friendship, and a professional relationship with Representative Stephanie Kifowit, who joins us on the line. For folks who need a little perspective about your ward, your district, tell us a little bit about the territory which you have so many great constituents.
The territory that I have right now is mostly the city of Aurora on the east side, around the Fox Valley Mall and the Oakhurst area, and then I go south and I pick up some of Naperville and some of Oswego, and I have a bit of Boulder Hill and Montgomery. So I actually have all four counties, King, Kendall, Will, and DuPage in my district.
That's the 84th district, the Root and Tootin 84th district. I know you don't call it that. That's just, I don't think a Marine would call anything Root and Tootin. That just sounds weird.
No.
I have on hold our friend Paul in Seattle would like to join our conversation. Hi, Paul. What's on your mind?
Well, hi. Thanks.
I have to go back to the comment that we passed a bipartisan infrastructure bill. That one made me kind of laugh and roll my eyes because it would be called bipartisan if it was 50 Democrats and one Republican. I'm sorry. To me, bipartisan is when a majority of both parties passes the bill, even though there may be some in each party that don't vote for it. But listen, the Republicans, what they voted for in their infrastructure bill is putting $1.2 trillion on the national debt. That's the only thing they're willing to vote for, is put it on the credit card for the American people. Put it on my credit card. Now they don't want to vote for the Build Back Better because that raises taxes on the rich. And you know what? This country was founded on low taxes, and the rich can't pay. And the $30 trillion debt that we have now, 97% of it, $29 trillion accrued in the last 40 years since Ronald Reagan, did not go into the pockets of the poor, because I don't see any poor people or people of color walk around with gigantic bulges of cash in their pockets. It went to the rich. And that's the way they do business. So if they want to call me a tax and spend liberal, I will gladly accept and say, no, I'm a tax and spend constitutionalist, because that's what the Constitution prescribes. There isn't any line that says borrow and binge. And that's what Republicans do. And I'll tell you something else. Democrats need to learn how to come back with quick lines like that, because if that's what they want to do, I don't want to. Democrats play this, I won't dignify Republican insults with a response. And I say I would dignify Republican insults with a kick in the ass. That's what I do for them. Thanks. Have a nice day.
I love that Paul's like, Paul needs a radio show. I think borrow and binge is a great way to respond. What are your thoughts, Rep?
Well, I think that and there were a lot of issues with the previous presidency with regards to excessive spending of money we just didn't have. They cut the tax rate and then continued to spend at high levels. And so I agree with that. But I think from my perspective and the people I work with and the residents that I work with, they want to know what we're going to do going forward. And what we did going forward in the Illinois General Assembly and what we're seeing on the national level is that people are tired of name-calling, and they're tired of bickering, and they want things to happen, and they want government to function. And to function, to me, obviously not to Paul, but to function to me, to get 15 Republicans in a bipartisan infrastructure bill, and to get 50% of the caucus on the state level for infrastructure, that's something that we as Democrats are showing that we can work together with the other side to get things done for the people at heart, not name-calling and not bickering. That's not my style. The past is the past, and we're fixing the past. 20 years of fiscal mismanagement is being fixed under this governor. We had the first credit upgrading for 20 years. Credit upgrades, balanced budgets. We're paying our bills down to under 30 days. You've had the comptroller say that. Things are happening under Democrats in Illinois, and I think things will happen under Democrats on the national level if Democrats get out to vote and maintain the work that we're doing.
I think, and I, look, I was talking earlier about the sort of gamemanship that goes on in politics, whether it's in Springfield or in D.C., and having to say, well, we're not. There are negotiations behind doors when Republicans or Democrats caucus as far as like how many votes do we have, who's going to be the one that crosses party lines. Are often decisions that are made that way too, sort of bargaining back and forth. But what we see is what's from the outside. And by the way, I know that Paul was saying that people are saying they're tired of Americans, or maybe you said about Americans are tired of everyone bickering. But people respond so strongly. Those who respond to the negative conversations coming from the right don't seem to mind. They want the bickering. They want to make it worse. And we have some folks that are still calling in about this conversation. So I have to ask, Rep, are you good to hang on through 4 o'clock?
No, I'm good. But I have to say, what segment of the population is being drawn to this bickering is not the independents. It's not the common sense people. It's people that want to feed their own echo chamber. And so you can't always listen to the loudest person in the room when you have 20 other people that are silent and don't share that view.
Right. Let's go to the break, and then I will take some more calls and text 773-763-9278. There's also been a shooting in Michigan at a high school. 3 students have been killed, and I believe others have been injured, at least 3 others. A 15-year-old student has been taken into custody. So we'll hear more about that during the news. More in a moment on Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Tried Eucrisa for mild to moderate eczema? It works at and below the skin surface and can be used on almost everybody, like on the dimples of a diva.
Yeah, roll your boat. Yeah, roll your boat.
Or the shoulders of a chef.
Look, Mom, I made jelly beans on toast.
Steroid-free Eucrisa works at and below the skin surface. It blocks PDE4 enzymes, which is believed to reduce inflammation, even on the wrist of a rebel.
What did you do to your hair?
What?
The specific way Eucrisa works is not well defined. Prescription Eucrisa for mild to moderate eczema is for topical use only in ages 3 months and up. Do not use if you are allergic to Eucrisa, crisaborole ointment 2%, or its ingredients. Allergic reactions including hives, itching, swelling, and redness may occur at or near the application site. The most common side effect is application site pain, such as burning or stinging.
Come on, moms and dads. Check out eucrisa.com and ask your doctor about Eucrisa.
Can I sing one more song?
This is the sound of the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program, saving you money and energy while helping you lower your carbon footprint. With discounts on Energy Star certified LED bulbs, so you can come back to a home full of savings. Learn more at ComEd.com/lighting. ComEd, powering lives.
Fever is the #1 COVID symptom, so be safe with an accurate thermometer. Only Exergen is proven accurate in more than 100 studies. Learn more at Exergen.com.
AP News, I'm Tim McGuire. 3 students are dead. 6 other people, including a teacher, have been wounded in a shooting inside their high school in a township some 30 miles north of Detroit. Oxford Community School Superintendent Tim Throne.
Of course, I'm shocked. It's devastating.
A 15-year-old sophomore is in custody. A senior says he stayed home today after getting a bad feeling about vague threats about plans for a shooting. The Omicron variant of the coronavirus has been found in some 20 countries, but not the U.S. yet. The latest, Brazil, reporting 2 cases today. Dr. Rochelle Walensky heads the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Right now, there is no evidence of Omicron in the United States. The Delta variant remains the predominant circulating strain, representing 99.9% of all sequences sampled.
An FDA advisory panel is debating the pros and cons of a pill developed by Merck to fight COVID-19 infections. Panel member Dr. David Hardy questions the medical usefulness of the drug.
An oral drug certainly looks very good, but with no data saying that it works with new variants, I think we really have to be careful about saying that this is the way to go.
There are also serious questions being raised about chances of birth defects should the drug be given to a pregnant woman. Recommendation vote is expected this afternoon. Jury selection underway in the manslaughter trial of a police officer from a Minneapolis suburb who says she mistook her pistol for her taser before fatally shooting black motorist Dante Wright during a traffic stop in April. One of Kim Potter's attorneys told a potential juror she will hear directly from Potter about the traffic stop that ended in the death of the 20-year-old. 3 jurors have been seated so far. 4 others are out of the pool of about 200. This is AP News. New York City opens a safe haven for people to use heroin and other narcotics. AP's Jennifer King has this.
New York's health commissioner says the city's first publicly recognized places for people to use heroin and illegal narcotics are open as of today. They're known as Overdose Prevention Centers, and they'll be co-located with previously established syringe service providers. Users bring their own drugs, and monitors watch for signs of overdose and can administer an antidote if needed. Proponents say the idea is harm reduction to save lives and bring people in from the streets. In a statement, Mayor Bill de Blasio, who leaves office at the end of December, says he's proud to show cities in this country that after decades of failure, a smarter approach is possible. In New York City, over 2,000 people died of overdoses last year. Researchers have estimated the proposal could prevent 130 deaths a year and save the city millions of dollars. Opponents see the sites as a moral failure. Federal law bans operating a place for narcotics use. Last month, prosecutors won their legal challenge against a Philadelphia group that was fighting to open a similar site. I'm Jennifer King.
I'm Tim McGuire, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
Now in Niles, eastbound dumpster is shut down at Orleander Avenue with a car that slammed into a house. In South Elgin, an injury crash on Randall Road at Redgate Road. In Naperville, northbound Route 59 shut down between North Aurora Road and Brookdale Road with an injury crash. Eden's Inn from Lake Oak Road 26 outbound is clear. Kennedy out to the split 19. 25 in the Express, 39 to O'Hare. Inbound from the airport at 48, 27 of that in from the junction. Ike outbound bumper to 25th Avenue. Circle to 390 and 55. Stevenson outbound. Earlier crash at County Line is gone. Delay remains. From DeSable Lakeshore Drive on out to 355, an hour and a half. That's traffic. I'm Mary DeBadges.
This hour of Joan Esposito Live, Local, and Progressive is brought to you by Team Hochberg. If you want to buy a house or refinance a house, call 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com.
Wendy's knows a better breakfast starts with a better biscuit. That's why you can get a hot and buttery Wendy's breakfast biscuit with bacon or sausage, fresh cracked egg, and cheese for just $1. Get your Wendy's Buck Biscuit Sandwich today. Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. We hope that you are happy, healthy, and safe wherever you are today. Joan is off until Thursday, and I'll be here tomorrow as well. And before we go on, we're continuing our conversation with Representative Stephanie Kifowit of the 84th District, and I've got some callers on the line as well. And I want to do a giveaway. We are giving away a copy of National Geographic's new book, Fauci, Expect the Unexpected. America's most trusted physician scientist, Anthony Fauci, has a new book that shares the lessons that have helped shape his life's philosophy. Compiled from hours of interviews and speeches, Fauci, Expect the Unexpected, 10 Lessons on Truth, Service, and the Way Forward reveals unique insight on how to lead in times of crisis and find resilience in the face of disappointment. The book offers an intimate view from Fauci in his own words, not just as one of the world's leading physician scientists, but as a family man and everyday person. Publishers Weekly says those craving more of Fauci's wisdom will love this charming work of self-help. Call now. Right now we'll take caller number 3. Does that work, Zach? Caller number 3? I think that'll work. Caller number 3 for your chance to win a copy of Fauci, Expect the Unexpected, 10 Lessons on Truth, Service, and the Way Forward from National Geographic. Available right now wherever books are sold. Contests running on WCPT 820 are open to listeners 18 or older and residents of the greater Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana area. 1 entry per person, 1 winner per household. Void where prohibited by law. Listeners may only win or qualify to win once every 30 days. Complete rules are available on our website at WCPT820.com by clicking the contest tab. So there you go. I'm sorry, Rep, that you are not eligible, even though you're on the hold. You are not caller number 3 for that book.
No, that's okay. I already have it on my Amazon wish list. So
there you go.
I'm gonna get it for Christmas.
It has been such a crazy ride. I think I'd heard of Fauci years and years ago. He's been such a big part of a science-based policy in this country, and it's interesting when someone like that has to step forward and be such a vocal proponent of please trust scientists. You know, it's as it should be. Our scientists, our educators should be the rock stars, don't you think?
Yeah, no, it's this whole paradigm shift is just simply unbelievable to me. How individuals that are on the internet with limited credentials, or you don't know their credentials, or you can't find the credentials, are being heralded as experts. And long-standing public servants like Dr. Fauci that are very, very well-versed in this are being discredited. It's really inconceivable in my mind.
I think, well, speaking of inconceivable, because January 6th, we watched with our own eyes, we watched the violence, we watched police officers being dragged and beaten and tased. We've heard the testimony of many people who were there saying that they were scared for their lives, and then we're supposed to believe that it was just a tourism trip, because Dave from Hoffman Estates wants to touch on that as well. Hey, Dave, you're on with Representative Stephanie Kifowit. What did you want to talk about? Because it says here January 6th.
Yeah. Hey, Patty.
Hey.
I couldn't disagree more with you on that. With that, the 1/6 commission, and that these people, they're getting they're thumbing their noses at this commission, and like Bannon and stuff. They refusing, these subpoenas and that. And if you recall, back when the Whitewater situation, Susan McDougal got jailed for like 18 months just for not talking to Ken Starr about that. And strength, Clinton never liked the military. Like yourself, you said you're military, as was I. I was probably long before you, though. And with
thank you for your service.
Oh, you too, man. And as with former President Obama, too, that he had that red line if you crossed in Syria, and then that line kept moving. It just looked like weakness, whereas these Republicans, they don't care. They're just going. They look, to them, they look like they're strong when they go, even when they're wrong. Like they make the big thing about, what happened at the Capitol, but they don't want to talk about what happened to those 4 Army Rangers and stuff that got ambushed that earlier, and another one in where was it, Yemen, that they lost a Navy SEAL. That don't count. But the 13, that sadly they paid, but and then you got on the Rangers that time when Trump was with the widow on the phone, overheard, and there was some representative of hers was in the car with her and saying, he knew what he signed up for,
I remember that.
And
don't forget what he talked about John McCain. I mean, he said that John McCain was a loser because he got caught. I mean, he said such a disparaging thing about a POW, John McCain, who is an American hero in my book.
Right. Well, that's what really turned him off on my brother-in-law, who was a Vietnam veteran and stuff, and he said that was the final straw, that this guy doing that. I mean, this chicken that didn't go himself, but...
why do you think...
If you remember with McCain, do you remember there was that one ship named after his dad, the USS John McCain, and they made them cover up the sign of the name of that. It was named after John McCain's dad in that harbor. When Trump, yeah. I don't know if it was in the Philippines or wherever, but they had to cover up the name when Trump was there. But
yeah,
and he's like, go on.
No. I agree, and I think that veterans, especially, veterans are on both sides of the aisle, and I'm on the Democratic side of the aisle, and veterans need to start speaking out, and we have really motivated. I just talked to a gentleman named Jason Menard, who's running in the Democratic race for state rep, and he's a county sheriff, and he was in the Army and the Coast Guard, and he's run. When you talk about drug busts, the Coast Guard does drug busts by the just a shipping container. It's huge. And 9/11, when he saw fellow police officers getting beat with an American flag, and when he saw what was happening on January 6th. Sorry, on January 6th, not 9/11. January 6th was officers being beaten and just our democracy being threatened. I mean, it spurs people to move, and people need to be moved, and people need to realize that our democracy needs to be secure and needs to have these confines and needs to be respected. And like the previous caller said, and it's just not being respected. And the events of January 6th show that there is work that needs to be done in shoring up our foundation of our democracy. And veterans, Democratic veterans need to stand up too.
Maybe you could run some kind of a bill that these people, as Patty already knows, as I brought up last night on this, that went to 1/6, and if they were veterans or active duty, or not even, that strip them of any kind of pensions or any kind of benefits. I mean, obviously they didn't want this government no more. They tried to overthrow it. You know, They should have to pay. They should have to pay for it. You know, I don't. And
people are getting charged and they are getting sentenced. So our justice system is working in that regard.
So Patty, last night there was one that all he got was a $500 fine with 60 days of
supervision,
community service.
Yep.
And he threw out all the other stuff. You know, but you know, and then you got these guys like Petraeus. You know, earlier, you know, another Republican general, for lying to the FBI, you know, years before, so he could get tapes to his concubine, and then Mike Flynn. You know, they consider all these people heroes, and I think Trump had commuted him, if I recall right. You know, so
I mean, the system isn't perfect. I'm not saying we have a perfect system, but I do respect due process, and I do respect our judicial system, even though I don't agree with some of the outcomes. I do respect that, and I've been in other countries. You might have been in other countries. Our system has issues, but it is still, I think, a very a system I'd like to live in, other than in some other countries I've been to. So
it has potential.
I'm not saying it's a perfect system, and I'm not saying I agree with what's being handed down in certain circumstances, but I think that, you know, it is at least working, and it is prosecuting people, and it is holding people accountable in some form for their roles in January 6th.
Thank you so much for calling, Dave. I put you on hold because I wanted to, before I go to the break, while I have it in my mind, Rep, you mentioned a candidate who's a veteran running as a Democrat. First of all, my question, do you have, are you the only Democrat serving in the House that is a veteran? Or is there another?
No, I'm the only female veteran in the whole General Assembly.
Okay.
I served 4 years active duty in the Marine Corps, so I'm the only female, and I'm the only Marine in the whole General Assembly as well. But there's another veteran on the Democratic side named Mark Walker, and then there's several on the Republican side, Dan Swanson, Mike Murphy, who actually just stepped down today, and Freeze was an Air Force veteran. I think there's one other person. I apologize, I'm forgetting. And then there's a couple just a handful in the Senate. What we have is we have two really exciting candidates. One in Lake County, who's Ryan Shannon, and he was on a submarine.
Oh.
And he had a career-ending injury, and very motivated, talking about mental health and you know, working through. Not only as a veteran, through some of the extreme emotions when you get out, especially if you have a career-ending injury and all of a sudden you wanted to be in for 20-some years and then you're out. But also childhood mental health issues. And then Jason Menard is in Tazewell County area, and like I said, he was in the Army for 4 years, and then he finished out his career in the Coast Guard. And I have to tell you, I know as a Marine we've made fun of the Coasties, but some of the stories this guy's told me, I have a newfound respect for what those Coasties do, because they do a lot of stuff. I'll be honest, I didn't really realize, but Jason has seen it all and has just really both of them have served their country well, and they're both looking to run for state rep on the state level.
That's Ron Shannon and Jason Menard. Was that the second one?
Ryan Shannon.
Ryan.
R-Y-A-N. Ryan Shannon and Jason Menard.
Excellent. Because coming up in a little bit, we're actually going to have Joe Duplessis, who was the candidate in my race for 19th District State Rep, and he's a veteran and a police officer. And I want to talk to him a little bit about how that relationship with, as you mentioned, Democrats who have served need to step up too. And I think let's talk about that a little bit more. We also have some more calls on the line. We'll get to James and Brian. We're on the line with Representative Stephanie Kifowit of the 84th District. Give us a call if you have any questions or thoughts. 773-763-9278. This is Patti Vasquez sitting in for the one and only Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. She'll be back on Thursday. I'll be in for her tomorrow as well. So we're continuing the conversation right here.
WCPT encourages you to think green. A healthy compost pile is easy to maintain with a few simple steps. Composting relies on heat, water, air, and a mixture of greens, fresh grass clippings, spent flowers, and fruit and vegetable scraps, and browns, straw, dried leaves, and pine needles. Add smashed up eggshells, coffee grounds, tea bags, and even shredded black and white newspaper. Do not add animal products, meat, dairy, gravy, bones, and mayo, or grease and oils to prevent unpleasant odors that could attract animals. Keep a container in the kitchen to collect vegetable scraps to add to the compost pile periodically. Every few weeks, mix the material with a hoe, pitchfork, or sturdy rake to aerate the pile and distribute moisture evenly. In about 6 months, your compost will look like soil and it can be used to supplement your garden. For more information about composting from the Chicago Botanic Garden, visit chicagobotanic.org.
Hey, Ray Magliozzi here. I don't know about you, but my car could use a few upgrades. I mean, the 8-inch tear in the driver's seat does have sentimental value since my butt has molded to fit it, but I'm ready to move on. My solution? eBay Motors. They've got all the right parts at the right prices. 122 million of them, from seat covers to whole new seats. When I get that new seat, I think I'll put the old one in the living room, right next to the minivan seats, or as we call it, the sectional. eBay Motors. Let's ride.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
And joining me on the line is our guest, Representative Stephanie Kifowit of the 84th District. I wanted to have her come on because I know that she's very passionate about a lot of the organizations in her community and throughout the state of Illinois. It is a Giving Tuesday, and there's a lot of groups that we want to make sure that we are talking about elevating, amplifying. And Rep, there were some groups in your neighborhood that you were, or in groups throughout the state of Illinois that you wanted to make sure we talked about as well.
It is. It's actually an initiative of myself and several other Democratic veterans. We launched a political action committee called Illinois Veterans for Change. And what we're looking at is supporting Democratic veterans in the state of Illinois on the state and local level to make a difference in our community, because veterans' voices need to be heard too. And it seems that they're being stymied by the noise on the other side of the aisle, and that we believe that we have a role to play in our democracy on the local level and the state level. And it's Illinois Veterans for Change. Illinois Veterans for Change. And that is that .com for the information, or Google Illinois Veterans for Change for the PAC? You can Google it. It's ilveteransforchange.com. Excellent. Thank you for letting us know about that, because you're right. I think that more, it used to be that I was telling my husband this the other day. I was talking about, the idea of representation. And I feel as though this is an area where we do need to support those who take on a responsibility that most of us can't or won't. And I do think that they get drowned out by the vilification that comes from the right side. James is joining us from Chicago. James, what was on your mind?
Earlier I was listening to the station, and I heard you repeat the fact that Donald Trump had made fun of a disabled reporter.
Yes.
And I just want to point out that has been debunked. It's been debunked for a while ago.
No, it wasn't.
I have you on...
No.
I'm watching you on YouTube right now.
No,
there's a video. I gave you a link.
I know, and I've gone over this story many times, and it is from your own sources and from your own choice and from your own picked from that. I mean, look, all you have to do is talk to the reporter. That, for me, Representative Kifowit, that would be the end of the story right there. And I'm not going to get into the misinformation of whether or not he mocked it. I mean, there's so many things that it goes into the complete character of who he is. So it's just not up for debate. Brian wanted to join our conversation too. Hey, Brian, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you, Patty. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Okay. I want to say this talk of kind of like come together with the Republicans and Democrats in the U.S. House and Senate, as your guest seems to suggest should be done, I find excessively timid and even self-serving. I know that the Republicans today in the House and almost all in the Senate and almost all in the U.S. House of Representatives for the products of a democratic society are outrageous autocrats, and I think they're right wing extremists, and that includes Democratic Senators Manchin and Sinema, and the human infrastructure package initially was going to be $6 trillion, then down to $3.5 trillion, and now down to $1.5 trillion. And to me, this is just putting Band-Aids on the problems of the poor and the working poor. I mean, in terms of job creation, ending poverty, health care, Violence Against Women's Act, the George Floyd Policing Reform Act, and I can go on and on that if you'd like. And I would like to hear your response, and I'll add something to that if I may.
What are your thoughts, Rep?
Oh, no, I'm happy to respond. I said moderate, common sense Republicans.
Where are they in the U.S. House and Senate?
Well,
maybe a couple in the House?
I think there's a couple. I didn't say them all. I didn't say that, but I said a couple. And I think that vilifying is not what Democrats do. And if there's people that work for a common cause, here's the reality.
I didn't vilify.
No. Wait. You wanted me to respond. So, but you want to talk about Manchin, and you want to talk. The problem is Democrats didn't get out to vote. And they didn't get out to vote to give the majority that we need to get things done. Like, you look at the Illinois House. We have the majorities of the Democrats. We have the majority in the Senate and the House, and we're getting a lot done for the people. The problem is Democrats nationwide need to get out to vote, and they need to have the majorities to get things done. And I'm going to tell you quite honestly, if they don't get out to vote in the midterms, you can count on nothing getting done, not even something whittling down from $6 trillion to $1.5 trillion. You can count on nothing getting done if people don't get out to vote. That's just the reality. Now, I work with common sense Republicans in the Illinois House. They're there, and we work for the people. And I think, there's a few of them on the national level. I agree with you. There's not a lot. But the problem is when you have a 50-50 Senate, that's the problem, is you got to get more people voted in the Senate on the Democratic side, and you could have had that package the way you wanted it to. People got to get out to vote. That's the bottom line.
The problem is that if the midterms are perceived as, and they will be rigged without H.R. 1 and H.R. 4, voting suppression, and Biden spoke quite eloquently about this about 4 months ago, and now hardly nothing. What's the point of anybody even voting in a farce election posing as a fair and free democratic election? What's the point without H.R. 1 and H.R. 4?
Well, that's exactly what the Republican parties want you to say, so that Republicans get out to vote and Democrats stay home. The point is you have to be an active player in our democracy. And saying what's the point is not. I mean, it's not what you do. It's not what you have. You have to vote in every single election. More people have to get out to vote. You have to register people to get out to vote. It's an active process. And if people just want to sit and look at legislation and how it gets passed and get demoralized and sit home, then it's just going to perpetuate the problem. You got to be active. You got to adapt and overcome. That's what we say in the military: adapt and overcome. And where there's a will, there's a way. But, that's the bottom line. People have to get out to vote.
Thank you so much for calling, Brian. I appreciate it. I had to put you on hold because I want to wrap up with the representative and ask about what you have coming up for the next legislative session, which I know is going to be a little shorter since the primary is coming up in June.
Yes, it is. It is a truncated session. Petitions get out in January, February, March. The primary's in June. The election is in November. But one of the things that we are doing right now is looking at session items. And one of the things from not only my dear friend Patti that we're on, but other friends of mine, is that, especially for women, is that insurance companies do not cover medical necessity breast reduction. So women are walking around with bad backs and a lot of issues because of insurance companies. So
wait, what? You didn't tell me you were working. Well, maybe you did, and I was just like, yeah, sure, that'll never happen. What?
No. It's so I have it drafted, and we're going to file that, and I'm very excited about that.
Can I testify?
Of course you can.
All right, then.
And then I'm also working on legislation which would require private health insurance plans to cover, without cost sharing, primary care visits and 3 behavioral health care visits during the planned year, because I think that health care and mental health care should go in tandem. And so even smaller kids can have mental health crises. We don't like to talk about a second grader or, a really young kid, but mental health is important. And so I have that insurance mandate, as well as mandating that our children in foster care be provided a mental health provider along with a primary care provider to be proactive in their mental health care as well. So I'm really excited about these pieces of legislation that I think can do a lot for everyday people and make their lives better.
That sounds great. I appreciate the work that you're doing on all those and all the issues that you pick up for families across the state of Illinois, for workers, for the future of our state. I wish you the very best. I hope I'll talk to you before the holidays. Be well, Rep. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you for having me, Patty. Anytime. I'll come on for Joan, too. Whatever you need, let me know.
Excellent.
But have a great and happy holidays to everybody. I thank all the veterans for their service. And thank you all for having me.
Be well, my friend. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Before we go to the break, Hawk Volkswagen of Joliet has been the #1 volume Volkswagen dealer in Illinois for the past 5 years. If you haven't experienced Hawk VW for yourself, now is a great time. Choose from a huge selection of new Volkswagen models like the Jetta, Passat, Tiguan, Atlas, and Atlas Crossport. Over 30 of each in stock. All the hard-to-find trim levels and colors, all ready for immediate delivery. Outstanding service, selection. Oh, there's my alarm to read that read. Selections and a first-class experience. That's why we're #1, why they're #1 in Illinois. Hawk Volkswagen on Jefferson Street in Joliet, online at hawkvw.com. Claim based on 2016 through 2020 retail sales. More after this.
The Hal Sparks radio program.
There are millions of people in the United States who are avoiding getting vaccinated, not because they were anti-vax 6 years ago or 2 years ago, or even genuinely that way now, but because it is literally just an act of stubborn fealty to Donald John Trump.
Hal Sparks, Saturdays from 11 to 1 on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Tried Eucrisa for mild to moderate eczema? It works at and below the skin surface and can be used on almost everybody, like on the dimples of a diva. Yeah, roll your boat. Yeah, roll your boat. Or the shoulders of a chef. Look, Mom, I made jelly beans on toast. Steroid-free Eucrisa works at and below the skin surface. It blocks PDE4 enzymes, which is believed to reduce inflammation, even on the wrist of a rebel.
What did you do to your hair?
What?
The specific way Eucrisa works is not well defined. Prescription Eucrisa for mild to moderate eczema is for topical use only in ages 3 months and up. Do not use if you are allergic to Eucrisa, crisaborole ointment 2%, or its ingredients. Allergic reactions including hives, itching, swelling, and redness may occur at or near the application site. The most common side effect is application site pain, such as burning or stinging.
Come on, moms and dads. Check out Eucrisa.com and ask your doctor about Eucrisa.
Can I sing one more song?
Is finding seasonal help on your wish list? You need Indeed, the all-in-one platform for interviewing, screening, and hiring high-quality people. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
I'm Jessica Ettinger, CNBC. Wall Street wrapped up November trading this afternoon with a sell-off for 2 big reasons. Fed Chair Jay Powell signaled a shift that inflation may indeed last longer than first thought, and word from Moderna that current mRNA vaccines may not do so well against the new Omicron variant. The Dow was down 651 points. The S&P 500 index down 88 points. Both of those indexes dropped almost 2%. The Nasdaq was down 245 points today, 1.5%. And only the Nasdaq was in the green for the month of November. But With just December left of trading for the year, the major averages still have some strong year-to-date gains. The Dow up 12%, the S&P and NASDAQ each up more than 20%. Apple shares were up 2% today, the only tech company in the green. Jessica Ettinger, CNBC.
Tried you.
Hear the CNBC Business Updates each weekday at 9:30, 12:30, and 4:30. Now, your WCPT 820 Chicago Traffic Report.
In Naperville, northbound Route 59 is closed between North Aurora Road and Brookdale Road with an injury accident involving a semi. In Niles, eastbound dumpster blocked at Ozark Avenue where a car slammed into a home. In South Elgin on Randall Road at Redgate Road, a 3-car injury accident. Eden's Inn from Lake Oak Road a half hour, hitting the brakes at Golf. Outbound is clear. Kennedy out to the split 25, Express Avia 544 to O'Hare. Inbound from the airport at 5133 and from the junction. Eisenhower outbound, Hefty out to Mannheim, circled at 390 an hour and 1, inbound at 52. Stevenson outbound, that is slammed out to Central. From DuSable Lakeshore Drive to 355 an hour and 20. The Ryan out to 95th and 32. That's traffic. I'm Mary DeBadges.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT Willow Springs is powered by ComEd. Lower your energy bills and reduce your carbon footprint with the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist Patti Vasquez.
Joan is off until Thursday. I'll be here tomorrow as well. And I'm so excited to talk to Dr. Lawrence Robbins. This segment of the Joan Esposito live, local, and progressive show is sponsored by Robbins Headache. And I'm excited to talk to you, Doc, because one, I feel better talking to medical professionals in general. How are you doing today, Doc? Oh, hold on a second. Let me push that up. There you go. Hey, Doc, how are you doing?
Terrific. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. As a doctor, when you see Dr. Fauci getting attacked and targeted as somehow being responsible for this nefarious plot, what goes through your mind when you see conversations like that, whether it's from the conservative right or just people who don't trust doctors in general when it comes to COVID?
You know, I think what goes through my mind probably can't be printed. He's been... So Dr. Fauci, he's been vilified on the right along with anyone else who's not ultra-right-wing. Yesterday, you probably heard on Fox they likened Dr. Fauci to Dr. Mengele, the Nazi Auschwitz evil doctor. And this is just where the right wing is. It's really pretty ominous and dark and probably destructive to our society, really. But politics and medicine do merge, and any scientist these days or doctor who says normal type things gets annihilated on the right. The right is also annoying. You know, they use these stoogey doctors like Ronnie Jackson, who somehow was the White House doctor and now is just a QAnon wingnut, I think. And Scott Atlas, who was somehow the White House doc under Trump in charge of things. And they really further their pretty sick agendas. So, you know, when medicine and doctors are used for political and nefarious purposes, nothing good really happens. We see this on the far right. Not good for our society, but, you know, I guess, unfortunately, Patty, that's where we are.
Well, and that's why there was a caller in the last segment who wanted to use his sources for debunking. And you mentioned the doctor that was working with under Trump and all the people that came out there and were saying, just a little over a year and a half ago, he was out there saying that it was going to be gone, that the pandemic, that the COVID virus was going to be gone by Easter. And then I can't remember the woman's name, the doctor that was at the press conference when he started talking about ultraviolet lights. And then that was the whole bleach thing. I guess it's hard for us to say, well, our doctors are right, but their doctors are wrong. That's the kind of argument we get into, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, that was good old Dr. Birx, who had the scarves, right. She had the nice scarves. And she, to her credit, she resurrected her tattered reputation a little bit later on and recently has said how terrible the response was. But at the time, she nodded like another bobblehead, like Mike Pence, and went along And, of course, anybody who was an adult in the room, if she had spoken up, she would have been canned quickly. But it may have been better to do that than to just go along with Trump's injecting craziness into our bleach into our veins. And they found this, they had to search far and wide for this goofy radiologist, Scott Atlas, who they put in charge of coronavirus in the White House. And Atlas, of course, said, it was a hoax, and it was like we were this horrible pandemic, and we had 2-year-olds in charge. It was unbelievable. And, of course, now we have, probably 900,000 dead, or maybe 1 million as a result. It was terrible.
It really is. And do you suggest that people, one, I would think that developing a relationship with your medical professionals is one way to stay informed when something like this happens, or having more faith in or referring to public health organizations. What are some of your suggestions for folks to develop an understanding and not be drawn into these vilifying of medical professionals that we've experienced over the last year?
That's a great question. People always ask, I hear this on CNN and that on Fox, and I don't know who to believe. I think there's a lot of mainstream sources. 98% of doctors are pretty much agree with each other about the pandemic and about the science. So I think the people I've seen on CNN have really been pretty solid. The doctors they've had on MSNBC and Mayo Clinic site, WebMD, Johns Hopkins, they all pretty much say the same things. When you get into the ultra-right sites, you see the COVID deniers and the anti-mask and anti-vaxxers, but pretty much all the mainstream sites say the same thing. I tell people to go to CNN.com, or New York Times or Washington Post. You get great medical and scientific articles every day that are complete and pretty accurate.
And I know that you, when we were messaging, you're like, people might be tired of hearing about the COVID variant. I do think that because we're starting to talk about this new one, the Omicron, and the different mutations that it has, and why, it's a concern. What are you learning about we know so far there's only a case in Canada. We don't believe that there's any in the United States, at least that have been tested here. What are your thoughts on the new variant?
Well, Omicron might not outcompete Delta. Delta is pretty infectious, but early results look like it's going to outcompete it. And there's good news and bad news. It probably will take over, pretty infectious. It has a large number of mutations, which is not great. And that means that it might evade our current immunity, our current vaccines. Not totally. The vaccines, we might have to give a double booster. But they've already started, since they have the Omicron sequence, they've already started tweaking the vaccine. It'll take 2.5, 3 months for the various companies. But our current treatments, remdesivir, et cetera, might not be as effective. And the current vaccines will work, but not as much. The cases in South Africa, on the other hand, have been fairly mild. But cases tend to be younger people at the moment, and that's going to be a little milder. We'll know in a couple of weeks. So, I guess I'm optimistic and pessimistic at the same time. We have more information every day, and it doesn't look highly lethal. It's not an Ebola where everybody dies.
Right.
So I don't think we have to worry about that. But it is concerning because Delta has 9 mutations, for instance, and this one has 27 or so. It's just, and we knew inevitably this is going to happen. The only way to combat it is to get enough people vaccinated around the world so the virus can't transmit. And that may or may not eventually happen.
Well, and that's the issue in South Africa, where we're having this outbreak. I believe it's over 65% are not vaccinated. So it's an issue of access, the supply, and getting more folks vaccinated there. I don't know if you saw Greg Gutfeld talking about he's one of the I say that name as though I know who it is. I have to see the face since I don't watch Fox News. But here's a quote from him about the Omicron variant. This is actually good news. It's nature's vaccine. You're giving everybody antibody antibodies. You might get mildly sick. You probably won't get sick. Nature is providing the solution to its own problem. This is why we champion natural immunity, which isn't the case. This is not what's happening. Can you say this is not what's happening, Doc?
Well, Greg Gutfeld and others, even Ronnie Jackson, who used to be the White House, are saying that it's a hoax, and Greg Gutfeld has a long history of saying ridiculous things. And when they talk about natural immunity, that's great. Let's just have 200 million people die, and then maybe we'll get natural immunity. It's not just if you live or die. In my practice, I do see long-haul. We just wrote an article about long-haul COVID and long-haul COVID from the vaccine, too, but more from the virus is 100 times worse than the vaccine. A lot of people, they don't die, but they have brain fog, and they have muscle aches, and they have cardiac problems, and they have lung problems sometimes, need a lung transplant. There are millions of people with long-haul COVID problems. So it's a nasty virus, and what they say on Fox, these guys like Greg Gutfeld, they don't believe it. They went and got vaccinated.
Yes.
They say the opposite in private.
Thank you. That's the thing, too, is I believe everybody at Fox has to be vaccinated. They have their own requirements and mandates at the network, and yet they're spewing all these lies and manipulating people and killing people is the only way to say it, isn't it?
Absolutely. And New York Times had a really good interactive, or maybe it was Washington Post today, about the countries in Europe, vaccination rates versus how much COVID they had. And it directly tracks, just like in our country, the red states that are less vaccinated have a huge amount of COVID. They have a huge surge in Europe, but it's much more in the unvaccinated countries. But they have the same misinformation problem that we have. Maybe we should do what UK did, which was to ban Fox News and cut down on it, but I don't know if that's possible.
And we don't want to restrict. That's our First Amendment. That is, it's just, we can't. Labeling it entertainment might be helpful, but I don't know that we can do that either. I think that would be at least a step in the direction to acknowledge that these are, like me. You shouldn't take everything that I say. It's why we have someone like Dr. Lawrence Robbins on with us. Do you prefer Larry or Lawrence? I might have asked you before.
Larry is fine.
That was my dad's name. Lawrence is a great name. Lair, it's a good name. I should just call you Dr. Robbins. We are hanging out with Dr. Robbins. This segment of Joan Esposito is live, local, and progressive, sponsored by Robbins Headache Clinic. And I want to take a break here and come back and talk to you. I want to know more. You mentioned talking about back pain, and because I go to sleep every single night, pretty much like in the permanent flinch position during this pandemic, I want to find out the different things that lead to our back pains and things that we can do to alleviate that, as well as over-the-counter painkillers. So we're going to continue our conversation in just a moment with Dr. Larry Robbins on WCPT 820. I'm Patti Vasquez, sitting in for Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. She'll be in on Thursday, so don't you worry. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll take a break right here, right now on WCPT 820.
Amy Goodman reports on the news stories rarely covered by the corporate media.
In Chile, security forces shot dead 2 indigenous Mapuche leaders during clashes in the province of Arauco. The southern coastal region has been under a state of emergency, with the Chilean government deploying 2,000 soldiers to the region as it attempts to suppress the Mapuche community and their fight to recover their ancestral lands.
Democracy Now!, weekday evenings at 11 on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, Ray Magliozzi here. I don't know about you, but my car could use a few upgrades. I mean, the 8-inch tear in the driver's seat does have sentimental value, since my butt has molded to fit it, but I'm ready to move on. My solution? eBay Motors. They've got all the right parts at the right prices. 122 million of them, from seat covers to whole new seats. When I get that new seat, I think I'll put the old one in the living room, right next to the minivan seats, or as we call it, the sectional. eBay Motors. Let's ride.
Tried Eucrisa for mild to moderate eczema? It works at and below the skin surface and can be used on almost everybody, like on the dimples of a diva.
Yeah, roll your boat. Yeah, roll your boat.
Or the shoulders of a chef.
Look, Mom, I made jelly beans on toast.
Steroid-free Eucrisa works at and below the skin surface. It blocks PDE4 enzymes, which is believed to reduce inflammation, even on the wrist of a rebel.
What did you do to your hair?
What?
The specific way Eucrisa works is not well defined. Prescription Eucrisa for mild to moderate eczema is for topical use only in ages 3 months and up. Do not use if you are allergic to Eucrisa, crisaborole ointment 2%, or its ingredients. Allergic reactions including hives, itching, swelling, and redness may occur at or near the application site. The most common side effect is application site pain, such as burning or stinging.
Come on, moms and dads. Check out eucrisa.com and ask your doctor about Eucrisa.
Can I sing one more song?
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Joan Esposito. Live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, comedian, talk show host, and activist, Patti Vasquez.
This is Patti Vasquez, and I am sitting in for Joan Esposito, who is off until Thursday, sending her all the positive energy that we have, of course. And on the line with us is Dr. Lawrence Robbins from the Robbins Headache Clinic. Is that right? I'm saying that correctly, aren't I, sir?
Yes, I subspecialize in headache, but we do neurology. I'm up in Riverwoods, and what's energized me is teaching the medical students all the time, and I get to see, it's energizing working with young people, so that's been great.
And that's the thing is it's good that folks take care of, themselves at an early age because, I went with migraines and severe headaches until my 40s. And because you just kind of, is there that attitude of like, just a headache, take an Excedrin, you'll be fine, rather than trying to find the source of your problems, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most migraines are genetic, and we have to pick our parents right for sleep, for migraines, for everything. But the good news is we have all kinds of new tools in our toolkit to treat migraines. Even in the last 3 months, there's been 4 new major breakthroughs. So that's been good. And we went many years without very much new. And most people can find things that really work these days.
And you mentioned that you wanted to talk a little bit about back pain, and I have to imagine that there are more people because of stress also doing things to their bodies, whether it's or with weight gain. So what were some of the things you wanted to share about back pain?
Well, we weren't meant to walk around on all twos is the problem. We're the only species, outside of birds, that walk around on 2 feet. No other primates, really. I mean, they'll get up on 2. And if you're on all 4, the stress on your lower back is much less. And going upright 5 million years ago put a lot of stress on our neck and back, and it gave us all kinds of problems with childbirth and feet. There's really too much stress on our lower back. Younger people do get back pain a lot. It's more muscular or soft tissue, occasionally a herniated disc. And in older folks, after age 55, 60, it's more arthritis, sometimes a disc. And you can do an MRI of everybody after age 55, and you find a lot of things in their low back. It's not always easy telling exactly where the pain is coming from. You have arthritis, you have some pushed-out discs, you have slippage of one of the vertebrae, the big bones over another. So we usually separate back into sciatica, which is nerve pain down the leg or into the hip, versus just general low back pain, and we treat them a little different. But there's a lot of things. Mostly it's preventive and doing stretching, Pilates. I push Pilates quite a bit. You can do Zoom Pilates or YouTube Pilates, even 10 minutes twice a week might be enough.
Really?
And it's really crucial to do. Our core is usually strong. People always, the buzzword is we have to strengthen our core. But really, most people's core is fine. It's just we need to get flexibility. We need to keep it stretched out. And that takes some work. Core work is not that much fun, but you don't have to kill yourself doing it. Even 10, 20 minutes. If people don't want to do half an hour, you can do any amount of yoga, Pilates, stretching, things like that.
I have found and this is something I've thought about a lot in the last few months, because as it starts to cool off, I don't move around as much because I love going for long walks, and I do this thing. I know Joan's talked about it. I started doing. I was listening to her show, Pliking. I don't know if you're familiar. This is going hiking while picking up garbage. So I do lunges and squats when I go for a walk, but I realized a few months ago that my flexibility is not, I used to be much more flexible. And so I started doing like YouTube videos of some yoga, because that is something that we really do need to pay attention to as we get older. I saw this documentary about veterans in homes and retirement communities and care facilities. And one of the reasons why, older people will end up is when they can't manage themselves in the bathroom. They can't reach. They can't take care of themselves there. And that's something to start thinking about now. I'm 50 and I'm like, I want to be able to, put that off as long as possible. Does that make sense? To have some independence as you get older and enter your geriatric years, right?
1,000,000%. So if we look at every age, there's studies from 50 to 90, 40 to 90, 60 and 70 to 90. The exercisers do better. The stretchers do better. And you're doing lunges and squats. Both are okay. I wouldn't do them cold. Say you go out and it's 35 degrees and you start doing lunges and squats, lunges particularly, you might have a mild strain or might hurt yourself. So we want to warm up a little bit, but don't kill yourself is the idea.
Right.
People do squats. I forgot that I had some low back problems, and I did some squats with heavy weights on my shoulders about 3 weeks ago, and I had just severe low back pain. So you have to be, everybody knows their body. We all get orthopedic stuff, and you have to be a little careful about it. But you have the right idea. Walking, hiking, while doing some activity that might be sort of fun. I don't know how much fun picking up garbage is, but it's something. It's a goal.
Exactly.
Yes. I think you have the right idea there. Yeah.
You're right. I have not been doing it as much in the cold, but you're right. My thing is, it's my ankles. When I do lunges, I don't do them as much because I have bad ankles. But that's a topic for either another person or another day. But when I do have some pains, I mentioned earlier that when I have migraines, I'll take like I take Excedrin, maximum strength. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about over-the-counter pain meds. That's something that tends to work for me, and people have a lot of questions when it comes to ibuprofen, naproxen, aspirin, all the things. What do you want people to know about these over-the-counter medications?
Acetaminophen's the safest and mildest and doesn't hurt the stomach or cause bleeding risk, but it doesn't work as well as the others. The anti-inflammatories, mainly ibuprofen, which is Advil, or naproxen, which is Aleve, are stronger and they work better for most things, but they hurt your stomach. You can get bleeding out of the stomach, particularly after age 50 and 60, and they can irritate the kidneys, increase bleeding risk and other parts of the body. So we have this love-hate relationship with anti-inflammatories like Advil, Aleve, which are ibuprofen and naproxen. So I usually mix it up. We'll use some acetaminophen, which is mild, and the others. And then there's aspirin, which can help prevent strokes and heart attacks, and also COVID. It can help prevent hospitalization from COVID because aspirin prevents the blood clots. But there is a risk of bleeding, increased risk, depends. So it's all in moderation. We try not to. There's a lot of people who take 8 Advil a day out there, and all of a sudden their stomach's bleeding and their kidneys. But these are non-addicting. They're not opioid. So I just want people to be careful. Mix some acetaminophen so you use less of the anti-inflammatories, particularly as we get older. Younger ages, these are much safer, really.
And, I mean, I'm not asking for myself, but some folks worry about whether, let's say on the side of a bottle, do not take if you are going to drink. And that's something that people have to worry about when it comes to liver damage, right?
Depends how much we drink and how much anti-inflammatory. 1 or 2 Advil in a drink is not going to hurt it, but 6, 7 Advil with a bottle of wine, all of a sudden you can have bleeding or
yes, I would think.
So everything's in mild to moderation is fine, really.
Well, and that's good to know. First of all, I don't know. I don't know anyone who takes 6 or 7. So I would think that we discourage that first of all, unless your doctor has prescribed it, right?
You wouldn't believe what some people take 6 Excedrin and 4 Advil, and if they have, severe pain or when you're in severe pain and there's something there, a bottle, you wouldn't believe how much people will take, and it leads to, what happens at 60, 70 years old or 75 is all of a sudden we bleed out of our stomach because the stomach's thinner. We don't get the warning that young people get for a few months of stomach pain and irritation and reflux, heartburn. So all of a sudden we bleed in people 65 going to the ER, and their blood counts are really low. They've had a heart attack, something like that. So these are more dangerous as we get older. But I'd rather, if one works, I'd rather use one of these than two.
Yep.
And we tried not to use more than 4 of the anti-inflammatories in any one day, if you can help it.
Thank you so much for that information. I think you just helped a lot of people in that moment. And with all the conversations I know that you and Joan have, I encourage everyone to visit ChicagoHeadacheClinic.com. And thank you so much, Dr. Robbins, for joining us today.
Thanks, Patty.
Have a wonderful, I will probably won't talk to you before Christmas or the holidays. Please have a wonderful holiday season.
You too.
Thank you again, Dr. Lawrence Robbins, and you can hear him on Joan regularly. Coming up next is the Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez show. It's been an honor to fill in for Joan this afternoon. I'll be in tomorrow for her as well. Coming up on my show, we're going to talk. I've never done this before, and I never in my career as a comic or as a radio show host have ever been like. This is going to be fascinating because I'm going to sit down with a candidate that I ran against. We ran against each other in the 19th District State Rep race, and there's some things that I've never told Joe Dupletion, and I'm going to make sure I'm saying his name right. Hey, Joe, am I saying your name right? Hold on a second. You got your mic ready. Say your name for me.
Joe Dupletion.
Joe Dupletion. See, I was not saying it correctly. We have some surprises for each other, I'm sure. There's some things I want to know about what you thought during the campaign, and something. We have an anniversary coming up. You don't know that? Well, you do. All right. Well, it's coming up next on Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez with Joe Dupletion. Thank you so much for tuning into the Joan Esposito Show, live, local, and progressive. She'll be back on Thursday. More after this.
Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
We have Megan